You know, hospitals are notorious for being sad places. Finding joy there is usually a hard task, unless a baby is born. Now, during my time as a hospital chaplain, I have seen my fair share of sadness. I have sat with families as they make difficult decisions, and I have as they grieve the loss of a loved one, or they deal with a devastating diagnosis. I have seen many things. However, some days are harder than others. There are those encounters that stay with you. Several months ago, I had such an encounter. I provided spiritual care to someone whose spouse was very ill. Yet this person was struggling to accept it. Something it's never easy to accept. The patient was no longer able to breathe on their own. They required oxygen and mechanical assistance. With their spouse's inability to accept the situation, they refused to place the patient on hospice or to intubate them to help them breathe. Both of these options that provide the patient with a relief from their suffering. As I stood talking to the spouse, the patient lay near me, strapped to the bed, connected to a bi-pap that forced air into them. It was difficult to watch. They were lightly sedated, moaning in pain. I spent several hours with this spouse. We talked about their life. They told me how they met, told me about their children. They never once talked to the patient. They never looked directly at them. Even when the patient seemed to reach for a hand, the spouse could not see what this patient needed. I encouraged the spouse to interact, hold their hand, talk to them, offer them words of comfort, I told them. The spouse would try, but was unable to continue. After several hours of this, I was feeling several emotions. I was sad, I was angry, a little defeated, and the emotional toll had drained me. When I walked out of that room, I went to get a drink. I filled my cup with ice and water. I grabbed a lid, I popped it on, and then I grabbed a straw. I customarily tapped the straw on the table. Pop! Out came a Bendy straw. A small smile of delight crossed my face, and a slight exhale. And I whispered to myself, a Bendy straw. A memory burst through the pain and the sadness of that day. Now I'm 5 years old and I'm sitting with my mom at my favorite restaurant. We're waiting for our clam boat. As our server delivers our drinks, I gleefully ask, Bendy straw, please. And when she gives it to me, my whole body is filled with joy and excitement. Those days for my mother and I were tough. We were poor. We were struggling to make it. She worked 2 to 3 jobs just to get by. And that time together was a treat for both of us. And getting that Bendy straw was pure joy. It's this, as this memory fills my mind, that same joy that I experienced as a child, the one that held me through tough times, inexplicably overcomes me. I feel my body relax, my brow unfurrows, and I take in a long, slow inhale. Leaning a little more into the joy and the suffering of that day, nothing had changed about the situation that I was in, except my perspective. Finding that small amount of joy in that moment allowed me to carry on forward a little less heavy, remembering that the world is filled with both moments of suffering and moments of joy, many times seamlessly blended together. Standing there holding my Bendy straw, I felt a deep and resonating connection with a book that I had been reading. Now, the words of Desmond Tutu had stood out to me in that moment loud and clear. His words, "The greatest challenge is to keep your joy in a world determined to make you miserable." This is so true. This world can make joy seem almost impossible to feel. And it was especially true for me at that moment. And then, when we do feel joy, we feel bad about it, like we don't deserve to feel it. We feel that the weight of the world is too much. It's too heavy. The weight of these moments make us feel, how can we possibly be joyful? It feels almost selfish, neglectful. It feels like we are betraying the world when we feel joy. This is something that Tutu understood intimately. Having lived through apartheid, violence, and injustice, he believed that joy and pain are not opposites, but rather they coexist. Tutu taught that people do not have to wait for life to become perfect before experiencing joy. What made him extraordinary was his ability to laugh and remain hopeful, even while confronting some of humanity's deepest wounds. For him, joy was an expression of resilience, faith, and human dignity. His belief in joy so deeply rooted that during the Dalai Lama's 80th birthday celebration, Tutu and His Holiness the Dalai Lama held a week-long conversation on joy. And those conversations were the basis of the Book of Joy. The Dalai Lama was also no stranger to the suffering of this world. Yet through it all, he remained jubilant, full of life, and known for his laughter. Both men faced trials and tribulations. The Dalai Lama, at the age of 23, fearing that China would imprison him, escaped on foot, walking for over 2 weeks over mountainous terrain, exiled to India, where he is over 50 years later. The Archbishop Desmond Tutu stood as one of the world's clearest and most courageous voices against apartheid. Through threats, harassment, and political turmoil, he refused to surrender either his conviction or his joy, believing that justice and reconciliation were both possible. Their inexplicable joy, resistance to the world around them. Both men are well aware of the atrocities that are happening on a daily basis, yet never wavering a commitment, an outlook to something more. Never wavering to the idea that joy was still all around us, still available if we choose to see it, and still capable of being felt if we opened ourselves to it. Their conversations, proof of their commitment, were filled with laughter, playfulness, love, wisdom, and most of all, infectious joy. The men agreed that joy was not just an emotion. It wasn't something fleeting or uncontrolled, but it was an action. Joy to them was not something that you came upon. It was to be cultivated. It was to be intentional, and it was to be savored. Joy is not the result of an easy life or a life that was filled with only good things. No, quite the opposite. Joy was an intricate dance with suffering. Joy, to them, is a byproduct of qualities that reside in the hearts and minds of those who work to cultivate it. Their conversation lifted up what they referred to as the 8 pillars of joy. 4, which reside in the heart. Those would be perspective, humility, humor, and acceptance. And 4 that reside in the mind: forgiveness, gratitude, compassion, and generosity. Their lived experience of these 2 men and scientific research agree. The foundation of joy and happiness is a healthy perspective about this life. That is how we see the world and how it affects how we feel and act. The Dalai Lama invites us to step back and look at the bigger picture, to move beyond our own limited self-awareness and self-interest, to look at something from several different angles, and to use the perspectives of others to create a more complete picture of reality. Research by Larry Schwitz supports this idea. He discovered that those who use the pronouns I, me, and mine excessively had a greater risk of heart attack, with a greater risk of it being fatal. This focus on self was actually a better predictor of heart attack than smoking, high cholesterol, and high blood pressure. And then another researcher, Hans Zimmerman, also found that people who preferred personal pronouns over the use of collective pronouns, such as us, we, and them, experience more depression than those who view the world as a place of community. Our ability to see multiple points of view shifts our perspective. Referring to his own exile and loss of country, the Dalai Lama speaks on looking at different angles to see opportunity as opposed to loss. He states that by reframing his situation positively, he was able to acknowledge not only what he lost, but also what he had gained. This ability led him to appreciate the new relationships that formed, more contact with the outside world, and to be free to discover the world without all the formalities that he had grown up with. But in this reframing, is it looking through rose-colored glasses or toxic positivity? It is the Archbishop who reminds us that we are not ignoring the suffering of the world, but we are expanding our view. We see beyond ourselves or the suffering to see those who are helping, those who are looking for healing, those who are looking to reduce harm. I know at times when I feel overwhelmed and I feel as if the suffering is too much to bear, I remind myself of the long game. I remind myself that the arc of the moral universe is long and it bends towards justice. If I look back over the thousands of years of human history, yes, there has been horrible things, but progress has been made. Love has been expanded. It has grown in ways that were unimaginable even 100 years ago. This remembering and holding is what leads me to lean fully into joy, not as a feeling, but as an intentional act of resistance. Joy gives us the perseverance to continue doing hard things. When systems push us to our breaking point, joy is how we push back. Joy is the why. It is the how we dig deep. Joy gives us strength, not only to meet the suffering, but reduce it. Joy is the how we face sadness and the unknown head on. Joy is not only for the privileged, it is for everyone. Joy is our birthright. Those who seek to harm us know that if they can steal away our joy, if they can fill our minds and our hearts with despair, that we may give up. Actually, they count on it. They count on joy being drained from our bodies. They count on dysregulating our nervous system so much that we feel we can no longer find or feel joy. They count on us being stuck in a loop of sadness, anger, and fear. They want to overwhelm and immobilize our efforts to challenge their hatred. Audre Lorde reminds us that joy gives us the energy for change needed to resist oppressive structures. It fuels our ability to keep showing up, keep loving, and keep working towards liberation. In that sense, joy itself becomes an act of resistance. Beloved, joy is embedded in the fabric of our lives. This world was created as a delight that is meant to be experienced. But if we let it, this world can easily steal your joy, your purpose, and your meaning. That day, I had felt my joy was lost. Yet joy is never lost. It's just waiting to be found. Joy is in the trees, in the flowers. It's in the smile across a child's face or the laugh of a loved one. It's a surprise rainbow after a storm, a warm cup of coffee on a cold morning, and sometimes it's a bendy straw. Blessed be.